UI to building your own startup?
Hello, first of all, thanks everyone for being here. Thank you for having me in your podcast, and to Matosinhos.Tech as well. Congratulations for the organization. So yeah, my journey as a professional started 10 years ago, all with technology, surfing the wave of technology from changing code into cloud, and then into machine learning, and then into generative AI, and always in a big corporate, which is EY. And that change it wasn't an easy process. I wouldn't lie. It's really tough to all of a sudden you have a huge comfort in terms of the decisions you make, and you have to just let everything go and create your own things. And all of the systems, processes you have on a big corporation, sometimes you need to think, those are not part of a startup environment, so I need to forget about them. And sometimes it's challenging, from hiring people into what we deliver, the quality that we put into things. Building an MVP, it's very different to build an MVP in a corporate or in a startup.
Okay, so what's your startup? What do you guys do?
Yeah, so our startup is Ramo. We are a climate tech company, and climate tech means that we build technology to support climate action. And climate action means every technology that it's built to avoid climate change. It's something that everyone knows deeply about, and we really need to do something about it. And there is several solutions. Some of them require technology like solar panels, huge factories to prevent climate change or to capture CO2 from the atmosphere. We work with a very old technology, we call it trees, and that technology has been absorbing CO2 from the atmosphere for years, and we have that solution in our planet, and we haven't found it in other planets as well. So we are trying to use it more and more across the world.
How did you get into climate tech?
Yeah, there's a long story, because all of my holidays, I like to travel with purpose, and that journey was with my wife as well. Travel with purpose means if you go to a country, we try to leave that country better than we found it. So there's many things we can do when we go to Africa, to Asia, to Australia. There's so much to do, and you start to engage with people, you start to engage with indigenous communities, and you start to see a very different world from what we see in the global north. And that was part of the trigger that I needed to convert as a problem solver from solving problems in the global north, which is how do I make my company sell more toast machines, and convert that into the biggest problems in the world, which is solving for the world hunger, health issues, climate change, and all of the top problems. And I came to a moment in my life where I was, living with these people and seeing so much that is needed there in those places. And I was like, I really need to do something about it.
How do you help those people building, I don't know, projects? What do you sell? Like, what's the product?
Yeah. So a lot of those countries that we call developing countries, at least in terms of economy, they sit in the tropics. And that's also where a lot of our forest is. A lot of the oxygen that we breathe comes from as well. So it's a place that used to be full of forest. Now it has been degrading, and those people are not really better in terms of economy or livelihood. So what we do at Ramo is we identify places to develop reforestation projects or to protect forests from being destroyed, and that brings money into those communities by the voluntary carbon market. So it means that the major companies that produce emissions, they want to offset or become net zero to be able to sell net zero products to you, and that means that they need to pay for some of that offset, and that money should go into those communities and support the development of those countries.
So you identify the land, and then who do you sell the project to? Like, who pays for the...
Yeah. So we have several types of customers. Some of them are the larger corporations that need to identify the places to develop carbon projects, because you cannot just plant a tree somewhere and call it a carbon project. You really need to identify where can you plant. There are several guidelines, and we use technology like remote sensing, machine learning, lots of satellite data and drones to be able to identify the best places to develop carbon. So we support that identification for these larger corporations, but also for the landowners and carbon developers. So people that have properties and they want to support nature restoration, they engage with us and they use our tools and our platform to understand if they can develop a carbon project in their property.
Okay, so in that case, the landowner develops the project, they own the credits, and then they can sell it themselves to the big corporates. Is that it?
Exactly. Okay. There is a shift there because some of the land in those countries not owned by a person and can be owned by communities. So those can be carbon projects as well, because those communities, they need to expand their production. And there are several guidelines. If we eat a bar of chocolate, sometimes you see a little frog there from Rainforest Alliance, and there are several sustainable certifications. But it implies that the person, the little farmer there and his family, it cannot expand to more areas to get more money for his family. So we need to provide him with an economical premium, right? So that we drink our coffees in a more sustainable way or eat our chocolates in a more sustainable way. But we really need to cater for these people that are providing those products to us.
You mentioned the tropics, so I'm assuming you have a lot of data, and all of those areas are probably in Africa, Brazil, the rainforest. How would you bring that to Europe, or the global north, as you call it?
Yeah, thanks. So Portugal just last week released the voluntary carbon market. It's 5 years late compared
What's that? Because maybe some of people here...
So the voluntary carbon market in Portugal, if you search online, you'll find it, is a system that regulates carbon credits in Portugal. So everyone that have land in Portugal can see if they are eligible to develop a carbon project by planting trees or supporting some kind of nature restoration. And with that market, they validate that you are doing the things in an appropriate way. So it's not to trigger the system. And then you can commercialize those credits into companies that need to offset or eventually to other places.
I'm thinking that could be a really good solution for the fires that you have.
Yeah, fires is really one of the biggest issues we have in Portugal, and we've been living in Australia for 2 years, and the amount of eucalyptus we see there is very similar to Portugal as well. So our traditional forests, like cork trees, like oaks, they don't burn as easily. Eucalyptus trees do, and our forest is the vast majority is eucalyptus, and it really needs a shift in terms of how do we change the forest into something that provides us more safety from wildfires, but also some more ecosystem benefits like safer water, more pollinators, and all those things that nature gives to us and we don't think about when we eat something or drink our water.
What's your view on this whole carbon credit system? Because I feel like a lot of people from the climate community think that they are a way to greenwash other bad stuff that companies are doing.
Yeah. And they are always a way to greenwash, and we see some very bad examples of it, and sometimes the money doesn't get to the communities. Sometimes the claims that the companies do, they are so far from the reality that it can be dangerous, because a company is delivering a car to you and you buy the car thinking you are buying a product that it's net zero, but if the company is not offsetting real carbon, then what you're buying is not really net zero, and you are creating more emissions to the world. And that's why we created Ramo. That's part of the reason. Is we use technology to monitor the carbon that is being stored in a forest, and that's the role of technology in this, is making the market more transparent and also make it faster to create those projects.
So the event is called MT Generate. So let's talk about AI. What kind of data do you collect or do you use, and how is AI helping on that?
So we use a lot of satellite data, but it's really important to connect it with data from the field. So drone data, field measurements, soil measurements, and then we train our machine learning models based on that connection of the satellites and the field data, so that we have the most accurate data that we can have for a specific country. Because from the satellite, we can look at places like Ghana and we see trees and then we think it's a forest, but actually they can be cocoa plantations. So it's very different, just looking things from above than looking things from above with some ground validation.
Do you have any example of a problem in your field that is not currently solvable, but might be with an AI breakthrough, and especially with the data that you're using?
When we are talking about satellite information, it's very heavy data. So we are talking about terabytes of information. And we use AI to train our models to provide a very high resolution imagery, but still is like 10 meters. But we want to go to much higher than that to be able to calculate every carbon that is stored in a forest. And that needs more computing power, more processing power, more AI and technology to be able to achieve that.
But the role of the model there is to ingest all of that data and to predict how much carbon will an area capture?
Yeah, exactly. Like any other market that we know, for example, if you talk about coffee, you can measure the amount of coffee you have in a bag by putting on a weight and measure it. But to measure the amount of carbon that it's stored is very, you need to cut a tree and burn it to see the actual carbon that is in there. So we use technology and science to estimate the amount of carbon there is in every tree species, and that's what technology is for.
And are the models accurate? What's your feeling about the results?
Yeah, they are as accurate as they can be. I really like, and I've been working with machine learning for several years. There is a sentence that I love from a very old statistician, and he says, all models are wrong. And sometimes I say this to the clients, and sometimes they don't enjoy that much. But it's true that all models that we have at our disposal, they are wrong. They'll be wrong because they are an approximation of reality that has so many variables that a model cannot just estimate with a high accuracy. But some models are useful, and that's what we focus in, providing utility using our models and trying to be as accurate as we can with them, and also highlighting where they are deviating from what we would expect.
Before we started recording, you told us that you guys are 6 by now, so 6 working full time.
Yeah.
What would you say is the biggest challenge right now?
It's knowing, in terms of human resources, like actually knowing how do we provide the right vision to the people for growth. In every startup you have hundreds of possibilities of things you can develop. You can imagine like a huge backlog, a huge roadmap for the product, and our team needs to be motivated, needs to be engaged with our vision. So we need to be very clear to what are we going to build next. And that's always a challenge, because you not only need to be deliver the things you are delivering at the moment, but you need to be thinking ahead, because people really need to feel that vision to go along with you.
On this, you said that you were 6 because you had AI tools and not 30. But do you approve the use of internal AI tools for development?
Yeah, we are AI first. Obviously, carefully. I know that AI sometimes is even shaping people and shaping how people talk and what they deliver. And I'm very critical about it whenever our team members use it, either for coding or to produce documents. It's very easy to catch at the moment. It will be harder in the future. But I think AI, we cannot escape from it. We really need to use it as the way to grow, and it's very hard to escape that reality.
Going back to Africa, you probably have a lot of clients there. How is it to make deals in Africa?
You feel really alive, It's harder, working in a big company, you don't need to think if people will actually pay you, so you need to put some other guardrails making deals in Africa. But Africa is developing at a very fast rate, and it has a huge amount of resources, a huge amount of amazing people there, and it's one of the best places in the world, and we need to support them. I think it's really our responsibility as well.
Which countries in Africa do you operate mostly?
Obviously, countries that have a Portuguese language, like Mozambique, Angola, but also Zambia, DRC, the other Congo, Republic of Congo as well. So we call it the Miyombo corridor. It's a stretch of forest that sits below a rainforest, and it's a very important forest because a lot of people in Africa depend on that forest to live, to get wood, to make food and to cook, and obviously cutting that wood is cutting machines that are taking CO2 out of the atmosphere. But we cannot ask the people to stop it. We need to find solutions to provide to those people.
And how do you get the first deal? I assume you had a product, an MVP or something, and then how do you get into Africa? Did you know someone?
Yeah, my co-founder spent 10 years in Mozambique, in a national park called Gorongosa. It's one of the best examples of nature restoration, and it's also part of why we created Ramo. He was doing a carbon project there, and the costs were huge. The time to have deliveries from clients was like very much consulting, like 6 months for a report to see if it's eligible to develop carbon project there. And Matt was, started to talk with me and said, Miguel, your technology couldn't do this much faster. And I was, yeah, for sure. And that was one of the big whys was, a lot of that technology is available to large corporations. And in terms of nature restoration, it's very hard to see that deep technology like cloud processing and AI being used for good.
Have you had any investment?
Yeah. So we've had angel investment, and we've had an accelerator that invested in us. It's Brainforest, the only accelerator focused solely on biodiversity and forests. And it was really a great opportunity to have both.
How's the reaction of an investor when you say that most of your clients are in Africa?
The investor is in Africa as well. So.
It's solved.
Yeah, it's solved. And we see a lot of potential in Africa, really. So Africa has been, for years and years, used to extract resources from nature. So a lot of the materials we have in our phones and devices that come from Africa. A lot of the food that we eat comes from Africa. And I think it's time to leave something there as well, something more than what it takes.
Do you think climate tech is a trend? Because we've seen like the COP conferences and all of these. And I feel like there's some people that use it as a flag for other stuff that may make it less popular than it should be.
Yeah, I think sustainability itself is being a trend. I think climate tech is a necessity more than it is a trend. It's really something that has to happen sooner than later. And what I don't like seeing in that trend is that a lot of investment goes in things like reporting or climate talk, and not much into climate action. And if you spend all your budget in reporting, in ESG, all those things that companies are forced to deliver, you have less budget to actually act and make something about it.
But how do you communicate the urgency of the climate change without sounding like without sounding so urgent? Like, how do you communicate it in a more sustainable way? Because, as you said, people will continue to cut trees because it's their way to make money.
And I normally try to bring conscious. All of us pollute, and all of us pollute more than what we actually are, taking back and store it as carbon. And I just think all of us need to have some conscience. Every time we do something, just think about it. Like, what are you doing? Where does this thing that I'm eating or buying comes from? What had to happen for this thing to be here in front of me? And sometimes it's so easy to put a wall in front of that and really don't understand what is happening in other countries in the world. So I think the first step is making people conscious, and that doesn't require a sense of urgency. And I think by making people conscious of those things by itself, people will start to act and be more concerned and make better decisions.
What do you think should be the next trends in climate action? Where should we be moving?
I think there's a huge focus in actual hardware, actual technology, like building large factories to capture CO2, which is a very tiny fraction of the air that we breathe. And building those large factories, they consume a lot of resources as well. And we have trees that, we don't need to reinvent. They are working there every day. We don't need to do that much. It's just let it go. And I think that the trend needs to shift from technology purely in the sense of creating more factories, more hardware, into technology that can sustain nature restoration.
But is it all about capturing carbon? Aren't there other ways for us to...
Yeah, there's things that people mention as geoengineering, which is a very human concept. If I made something wrong, I'll make another thing to solve it. The examples that we have in the world, it's normally not very good examples, so we normally correct things that we've done bad with things that are even worse. So people talk about releasing aerosols into the atmosphere to reflect the sunlight and things like that don't require capturing the CO2, so that we can continue to create emissions. There are much easier paths to actually storing carbon. And your question is very relevant, because when you think about technology that stores carbon from the atmosphere, we are not considering things like the other ecosystem benefits that trees and forests give us, like having pollinators to pollinate the food that we eat, having safe water to drink. So many ecosystem benefits that we get from nature. And it's very, simplifying it just to the concept of CO2, it's also something that humans like to do. It's much more measurable.
Let me just go back to the thinking about our actions, because I feel like this is a debate that's still ongoing. Are our individual contributions enough, or should the governments and companies be leading this way? Because I feel like for us it's much harder to do that than for companies.
Yeah. And I've had that feeling for a very long time. And what changed that concept to me was in Australia, I was working with an NGO called the Wilderness Society, and it's an NGO that makes political pressure, and it's supported by Australians, so people donate to the NGO millions a year, so people that care about these topics. And just by doing that community effect of pressuring governments into making the right decisions, they can stop large corporations from extracting oil in the Great Barrier Reef, places that are important for the world. They were able to stop those. So I do believe that people power is something that we normally underestimate, and it's really very powerful. So our governments, they do the decisions based on what we say and what we feel. We just need to throw it out there to join more people in our battle, to join more people in our communities.
What are you most excited about in AI versus climate tech for the next, 5 years?
There was, of these 10 years working in technology, like the first 5 were very predictable. We could learn something and implement it in several clients. It would always be the same, very similar. We can optimize some things. I think right now the pace of change is so rapid that even thinking about the next 5 years to me seems like really something that I couldn't imagine. There is James Cameron, the guy that made the Exterminator. He's saying that it's getting very hard to make those sci-fi films, because the moment he thinks about a film, it takes like 3 years to actually get that film out to people. So in 3 years, what it's going to be like?
Reality catches up.
Exactly, very easily. So, and that's where I'm more excited about AI, is like really to see how it will turn out. There will be people using it for very good things. There will be people using it for not so good things. And I want to be on the good side.
Okay, I think we can end with our usual question. We have a live demo after this question, so don't just go away. You want to do
You
it?
want me to do it?
Yes, yes.
What's our usual question?
The last one.
Just kidding. So we will want to ask you for an advice you wish you were given at the start of your career, and you weren't.
Or in other words, an advice to young founders.
One that I think it changed a lot from before the moment I started into starting. People talk a lot about persistence as being a very critical factor. And sometimes if you are persisting on something that is not working, it's not a good decision. So I really think that consistency in doing things right, in treating people well, in having right values is what will get you success in the end.
Okay, I think our time is up. Thank you, Miguel. It was super interesting.
And thank you all.
Thank you for coming. And I think Nelson will guide you to the next part of this event. The venue is amazing, so stay till the end. Should be cool.
Thanks, everyone.